Okay, guys. So now we will look into the impeachment. Okay, impeachment of president. Read this in detail. Article 61. Okay, so the impeachment proceedings can actually start in either house of the parliament, but the question is upon what ground? It is basically violation of constitution. Okay, now what amount to violation of constitution and all? There's a separate question. But even if you're not following the advice of council of ministers, is that a violation of constitution? Yes, it is a violation of constitution. Why? Because it has been there in the constitution that you have to act in accordance with the aid and advice of the council of ministers. So that is also violation of constitution. So that can also be a ground for impeachment of president. Okay, so I hope this point is very clear. This is constitution is silent on what amount to violation, but it will be seen based on the context. It can be moved in either house, Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha. But when the if the and once it is moved in any of the houses, it has to be passed with 2/3 of the majority. Now, if you need to move the resolution of impeachment of the president, you need the support of 1/4 of the total members of the house. Okay, so first you need 1/4 of the members support to move an impeachment resolution. Once it is moved, it has to be passed with 2/3 resolution, and before that, a notice has to be served to the president. 14 days notice has to be served to the president, and after that only this can be passed. Now, once it is passed in this one house, it will be passed on to the other house. Suppose this is in Lok Sabha, then Rajya Sabha also need to be passed with 2/3 of the majority. But before that, this Rajya Sabha, guys, it is not necessarily this order. It can be initiated in Rajya Sabha, then it can be passed on to Lok Sabha. So whoever is getting the second situation, that means not the house in which it is initiated, they will do this investigative role. Okay, whatever is accused, whether it is true or not, they will do the investigative role, and if it has been found true, then it has to be passed with 2/3 of the majority. And if that has been passed with 2/3 of the majority, then the president stand impeached. Okay, so you can say there's a quasi-judicial function for the second house, because there is an investigative function, and this removal function is also actually happening at the second house effectively. Okay, but the president here in the second house, when this is done, president have the right to represent himself, right to defend himself. Because if you remember, yesterday we have discussed about principles of natural justice, right? Nobody can be punished without unheard or unheard. Here it's impeachment is a punishment. This is your misconduct, right? So there is a misconduct, and impeachment means it is a punishment for something which you have done. So he must be given, he can represent himself, or he can represent himself through an attorney also. So that is about the impeachment. Okay, veto. I don't think that I need to discuss this veto. There are four main. What are the different veto? Absolute veto, pocket veto, suspensive veto. Okay, now before I discuss about the vetoes, what are the different types of bills? Ordinary bills, money bills, financial bills. Guys, look into the differences and all between money bill, financial bill. They can ask you question here. No time to discuss all those minute facts. Constitutional amendment bill. Okay, now here if you look into this, in case of constitutional amendment bill, which is like under article 368, president actually have no choice but to give his assent. If both the houses of parliament has passed with the special majority, and in respective matters of the state permission is also there, then president have to give his assent. There is no choice here for the president. When it comes to money bill, what is the situation? Money bill, he actually give his assent to the money bill because it will be introduced with the prior permission of the president. No, so usually he will give assent to the bill. Okay, though if he need, he can use absolute veto here, but whenever you use absolute veto, it has to be based on the recommendation of council of ministers. Though he can use this, nobody is stopping you from using this, but with the recommendation or the advice of council of ministers. But generally that will not be done. because money bill, it will be passed by the Council of Ministers mainly, so it will be accepted and assented by the president. When it comes to ordinary and financial bill, then what are the possibilities? He can give his assent to the bill, then it will become an act. Okay, so that is first possibility. Second possibility is he can withhold the assent to the bill. He can declare that he withhold the assent. Okay, that is what absolute veto. That means he withhold the bill. But I've told you, in case of absolute veto, it will be done on the advice of Council of Ministers. So his absolute veto power is actually with the Council of Ministers. Third, what? So that is absolute veto. Okay. What is the third possibility? He can refer it, like what has been done by Kalam, right? In the Office of Profit Bill, he can refer it back to the Parliament, okay, to the House, and once it is passed again, with or without modification, whether they have made some modification which has been suggested by President or not, it doesn't matter. If it is passed again, it has to be given assent. This is what suspensive overriding power is there with the Parliament. Okay, fourth one, he can put the bill on the table so that it won't become an act. So that is what pocket veto. Guys, for this suspensive veto and pocket veto, he don't want recommendation of the Council of Minister. But absolute veto, you need the recommendation of Council of Minister. Okay, so this is how the veto. Now, the next one that I need to discuss is discretionary powers of president. That is of more of a mains topic. But one thing you understand, the most important discretionary power that they can ask you in prelims is when there is no political party or any coalition political parties enjoy majority in Lok Sabha, then president may use his discretionary power to invite the leader of any political party to form the new government. So president can invite any leader from any political party to form the government, and then he can prove his majority. But what situation? No political party or coalition is not able to prove the majority in the Lok Sabha. Okay. Now, what is this ordinance making power? Ordinance making power is under Article 123. Okay, so it is actually a legislative power of the president. So, guys, you can actually expect a question: which among the following is a legislative power? So, you need to know each and everything coming under what. So, which among the following is a legislative power of the president? Like in that, if you see ordinance making, you should be in a position to understand, and you should be in a position. This is an easy one. You will understand the legislative power. He can make ordinance when the parliament is not in session, either of the houses are not in session, or both the houses are not in session. President can make ordinances, especially if some important issues there. It can ordinance. It's similar to the laws which is made by the parliament only. Okay, when it is exercised, when both the houses of parliament are not in session, or either of the houses not in session, because both houses are there not to pass a law or act. So if any of the situation, president can issue ordinance. It's just like a law. He can issue ordinance on mainly the same subjects under which the parliament can make law. It is exactly the same. So he can create a new law, or he can amend or repeal any already issued ordinance also. Okay, now is it subject to judicial review, the ordinance making power of president? Yes. Just like any act which is made by the parliament is also subject to judicial review, because there's a basic structure. Similarly, any ordinances which is promulgated by the president is also subjected to judicial review. Even under this article 13 also, if any ordinances which has been promulgated by the president, if it is affecting the fundamental rights, then it is liable to be struck down, right? So this is also subject to judicial review. So ordinance making power can be asked as a question, impeachment can be asked as a question, judicial power can be asked as a question, election can be asked as a question. So president is a very, very important topic. Don't miss any point completely. At least these points that I've discussed, the discretionary power, the veto powers, everything has to be, you should be, guys, I need to cover this in 15 minutes, okay? And whatever possible, I'm doing it here. But what I can tell you is what you need to do. You have to spend at least 4 hours on this, and you have to read this Lakshmikant and cover in and out of it, okay? And guys, you don't want to read anything else for this. There is no need to go behind this DD Basu or any other Bakshi or anything. Just stick to Lakshmikant and that will be fine. That itself is much more. Okay, if you can do that, completely, you will be able to get 90% of the question that they're asking. Forget about that 10%, which even if you read anything, that you're not going to get it. Okay, so 90% you can get it, and out of this, if you can make around 80% accuracy, then that will be really good, guys. Okay, that is the approach that we need to follow. If you're getting 20 questions, out of this, I'm saying that it is crystal clear 18 will directly come from Lakshmikant, one or the other way. You connect it to everything. That is the kind of understanding that you need to have. And if this 18 question, if you can answer with 80% accuracy, then it is fine, right? If you are able to get at least 15 from this, then you're done with this. So this is the approach, and that's enough. Stick to that, especially these topics that I've told you. Never miss these topics. Okay, so that's about ordinance making power. This is subject to judicial review. And what is the maximum uh, time the ordinance can last? The sessions, the gap between two sessions can be maximum of 6 months. Okay, so this is a maximum gap which can happen between two sessions of parliament. So this is there, so 6 months. Now once the parliament session starts, the ordinance need to be approved within 6 weeks of the reassembly of the houses. So 6 months can be the gap between two sessions. Once they reassemble within 6 weeks, so what is the maximum time period maximum in which an ordinance can lapse, an ordinance can last? It will be 6 months and 6 weeks. Can it last beyond that? Yes, when it has to be approved by the parliament, it has to be approved by both the houses, then it can last. Okay, so, guys, now look into the this executive power, judicial power, legislative powers. This ordinance making power is a legislative power with respect to budget, with respect to the report of UPSC, report of National Commission of SC/ST, National Commission of Backward Classes. All these are laid before Parliament by the President. So, all these are the powers of President. Financial powers. Okay, with respect to money bill, you need to look into all. That means when I say president, cover in and out of it. No need to leave anything for chances. Judicial power, pardon, reprieve, respite, remission, commutation, everything. Okay, so when I say pardon means what? Completely from all kind of punishment, from any conviction that has been given, completely pardon, right? When I talk about reprieve means a stay on the execution of the sentence for a temporary period. For example, a death penalty has been issued, and it has been from the sessions court, it has been go to the high court upheld, supreme court upheld, then you go to the president. Okay, so the president, you have filed this mercy petition or whatever it is. So it has been filed, but by this time tomorrow, let's suppose this execution is coming. So what you can go for is reprieve. So till the time president is considering this, there will be a reprieve. Respite means giving a lesser punishment. For example, a rigorous imprisonment was given, that can be made into a simple imprisonment. Remission means length of the punishment can be reduced. Let's suppose 10 years is given, it can be reduced to 5 years. Okay, commutation means one form to another form, or it can be a lighter in character. It is done based on some condition, by looking into women, old age, those kinds of situation. That is what commutation. Okay, so read that. These are the judicial powers of president. So impeachment, very important. Impeachment is important for prelims and mains. Ordinance making power also important for both prelims and mains. Okay, now we will go for Council of Ministers. Okay, so the main executive of the union government. So what are the cardinal principles of parliamentary form of government? Whenever we discuss about parliamentary form of government, what are the key points here? President is the head of the state, right? That is what we have discussed before. Every executive actions and everything will be taken under the name of the president. Even, guys, when you're joining this service, especially if you're joining this all India service, you will be getting appointment order from whom? You will be getting it from the president. And who can remove you? You can be removed only by the president. Nobody else in the world can remove you from service. As he is appointing, he only have the right to remove you. Okay, so you can see all the important appointments and every executive actions, everything is done in on behalf of or in the name of the president. So that is what you mean by head of the state. or executive head of the state, and not the head of the government. So who's the head of the government? Prime Minister is the head of the government. Okay, so that is the typical parliamentary system. Now the real executive powers are actually exercised by the Council of Ministers, which will be headed by the Prime Minister. So that is why we need to discuss this Council of Minister in detail. Even when I've discussed about the president, we have discussed that already, that the president can exercise all the powers which is vested on him on the advice of Council of Ministers only. Okay, so that is binding on the president. If not, if he's not doing that, if he's going against it, that can be a ground for impeachment, because that stands to violation of constitution. If you're not following Council of Minister, means that is a violation of constitution. Okay, now the members of the Council of Minister, this is what I've told you. Legislature, this is the system, right? Parliamentary system. This is executive. So executive is actually borrowed, or executive is from the legislature, and then you have an independent judiciary. What is the presidential system? This is executive, this is judiciary, and this is legislature. So clear-cut separation of power between the three. But that's not the case in the parliamentary system. Okay, or the system that we are following. Legislature means what? These are MPs. Out of these MPs, some MPs are chosen as the Council of Ministers. They are the main executive body. So what is the role of the executive? Implement the law. Legislature, make the law. Judiciary, enforce the law. Here it has been done by the three wings, three arms, clear-cut separation here in this way. In fact, you can say executive is part of the legislature, or executive is the baby of the legislature. Executive is actually drawn from the legislature. Okay, so these are the ministers. Ministers are from the legislature only. But in this system, if you look into, it is the executive who's the president, who is the head, and he will choose his minister. Is it from the legislature? No. Is it from judiciary? No. From where? From his choice, from the people who have this expertise. That's not the case here. The prime minister will come from the legislature. The other ministers also will come from the legislature. Okay, so now if you look into this, the system, the setup, the core, this is a core. That's the cabinet ministers. Okay, where this term cabinet was introduced for the first time, this was also a prelims question, 44th Amendment Act. Okay, so that core, most important ministers. Okay, and then about this, ministers of state. Then there will be deputy ministers. Okay, so the cabinet ministers are the senior most ministers, and they will be usually the head of the portfolio, and they have the right to attend all the cabinet meetings. Ministers of state, they are the second ranking minister, who are normally given not given independent charge like these. Okay, but can be given also if you are an expert in like education or finance. Not finance anyway will come under cabinet minister only, but if you're expert in environment or something like that, then you can be given independent charge also. Okay, so deputy minister basically to assist the setup. So okay, so suppose the minister of state is holding an independent portfolio or independent department, then he will be called as minister of state independent charge. Okay, so deputy ministers are actually the junior most ministers, so they will only be to assist the cabinet ministers or the ministers of state. That is their role. So when I talk about the Council of Minister, what is this Council of Minister all about? We have the cabinet minister and the minister of state, and then the deputy minister. So this is what Council of Ministers. So whenever we use this word that the president will act in accordance with the advice given by the Council of Ministers, we are actually referring to this. So when we talk about national emergency, the cabinet it should be given in writing, means we are referring to what? This. Okay, so this is the cabinet. This is the senior most ministers. When I talk about Council of Minister, this body, those three will come. What about parliamentary secretary? Parliamentary secretary and all these are not part of Council of Minister. But I think in Lakshmikant it has been given that parliamentary secretary is actually part of council of minister. That's not okay. Parliamentary secretary, no need to have any confusion. They are the members of ruling or the coalition party, and appointed by parliamentary secretary by PM. Okay, so they are not part of council of minister. They're basically to assist the members of council of minister in discharge their official function. So parliamentary secretary, they are the secretaries of these ministers, so their job is basically to assist. They are not part of the council of ministers. Okay, now who will be taking their oath and office, everything? It will be done by the PM and not the president. But you can see here in this context, in the case of minister, it will be done by the president. Okay, cabinet, I am not explaining further. Collective responsibility. Guys, I hope you know about collective responsibility. Under Article 75, Clause 3, the Council of Ministers is collectively responsible to Lok Sabha. That is also one of the main cardinal principle of parliamentary form of government, right? That means once a collective decision is taken by the cabinet, even if the decision relating to any specific single ministry, it becomes a collective decision. So once the cabinet has taken the decision, it will be the decision of all. That is what you mean by the collective responsibility. So if that decision is going good, everybody will get the benefit out of it. Everybody will get the benefit of the success. If that decision is going, it's just like when you see Indian team is winning a match, everybody will get the credit. If you're losing the match, everybody will be losing, right? So what is the purpose of this collective responsibility? Because despite these differences, different ministers will be there from different states, from different caste, different religion, different communities. But despite all these differences, when you are having this collective responsibility, you will be coming together. Okay, and if there is no possibility that you are showing that collective responsibility, if you are revolting and if you are violating this is actually a violation of the constitution. And in fact, PM can remove you from the ministership, right? So that can be done under which article? There is an individual responsibility. Under Article 75, Clause 2. Minister, yeah, 75, Clause 2. We have discussed it already. Individual responsibilities under Article 75, Clause 2. Ministers are individually responsible to the president. Here, the ministers are responsible to the Lok Sabha. Here, the ministers are individually responsible to the president. Okay, so that means what? When I talk about individually responsible to the president, means ministers hold office during the pleasure of the president. And when we talk about pleasure of the president here, it is the advice of PM. That is what more important, right? So president cannot remove an individual minister on his own. He can remove only on the advice of the prime minister. Okay, so you read these two together. This ensure collective responsibility, this ensure individual responsibility. In fact, because of this individual responsibility, this can be ensured. That means if somebody is not able to follow this collective responsibility, then the PM actually can remove him easily. Okay, so in fact, it is this individual responsibility is actually eventually strengthening the collective responsibility of the COM. So if there is any possibility that the individual minister disagreeing with any of the decisions of the cabinet, then he can be removed easily, right? Guys, what do you mean by convention? These are unwritten rules that are generally followed. Okay, so but these are regarded as legally binding. For example, like if you're not like if the speaker is from the ruling party, the deputy speaker should be from the other party, right? 3 regular sessions of the parliament, president is giving assent to the money bill. All these are actually what? All these are convention. These are unwritten rules. It can be challenged also because there is a legal binding. If you are violating it, it can be challenged. And these are not having that much constitutional obligation, or that much strict interpretation is actually not required when it comes to these conventions. Okay. Caretaker government. The government. What is caretaker government? This the government comes into existence when popularly chosen council of ministers loses confidence of the Lok Sabha, or when PM dies, or when Lok Sabha stands dissolved. What is the reason? Which article is the reason behind this? Article 74, right? Because what Article 74 is talking about, the president shall have council of minister to aid and advise. So, in case of the death of the PM or Lok Sabha stands dissolved, there should be an interregnum. Okay, so that interregnum should not. In fact, that gap should be filled. So, you can say that the caretaker government is a government in interregnum, and it will last till the new government is formed. And only reason why this is there is because Article 74. Article 74 demand a council of ministers to aid and advise the president. Okay. And I'm not talking about the functions and everything. They will not take major decisions, important decisions and all. But however, if the situation demand, they can take important decisions also. Okay. No, they don't want to prove majority. If they can prove majority, then there is no need of that situation. No, they can be a formal government. There is no need to prove any majority or anything. They cannot take any major decisions or anything. This is based on agreement. But if there is any war or anything which is coming, then immediate decision has to be taken so they can take decision. That situation. Okay. So, guys, what we will do now is we can meet tomorrow also. Tomorrow we will meet at 7:30, and I will quickly go through this topics like parliament, and then panchayat raj institutions, and some miscellaneous topics. Okay, so right now we will stop here. This is enough for today. But go through all these topics that we have discussed 2 days so far. I think I've covered almost all the important topics. Parliament is very important, speaker and everything that we will do tomorrow. And Panchayat Raj institution is also very important. Sociology class is at 6 p.m. 7:30. We will meet for polity. Okay, I'll message you guys in the group.